Is Jessica Tarlov about to be fired? Well, take a look at this next clip and you'll see why so many people think Fox News is having a hard time retaining the Five's audience with her on the panel, because she just tried to saddle her co-hosts with the so-called Great Replacement theory over their criticisms of migration and the border crisis. This was out of turn for the panel, specifically because the implicit accusation almost flared up friction between Jessica Tarlov and Jeanine Pirro. Let's just get into it.
The Great Replacement theory, which
That's
is
not what I'm talking about.
But that is what it is. The idea is that
no, I'm not. Don't pin that on me. I'm not talking about replacement.
What are you?
I'm
really?
saying that they can come
Bringing in
here
a whole
and they will
new batch
again,
of voters who will vote for.
No,
Democrats have said that, though. Democrats have said that, and they've never used the phrase replacement theory. But they talk about bringing in new voters and turning Texas from red to purple to blue. So it's not like a racist thing to say
Gen Zs to register and vote.
No. They talk.
Yeah,
we're
come
not,
on,
Jessica.
There is no plot on the Democratic side to take undocumented migrants and get them to cheat the system.
We've played clips of that.
As nefarious as it is, we've heard echoes of the Great Replacement theory ever since House Republicans pushed to impeach Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas in late January. And you know why that is? It's quite simply the fact that Secretary Mayorkas has overseen one of the worst border and illegal immigration crises in the United States in recent decades, and regrettably, it's feeding into many conspiracies on the far right that this negligence and incompetence is actually part of a deliberate plot. None of that is something that Judge Jeanine wants to be part of at all. Even more sensitive is that in a time when anti-Semitism has seen a rise as a result of the Israel-Hamas conflict, Jewish groups and organizations have voiced their concerns against this theory that's driving the push to impeach Alejandro Mayorkas. But the truth is, that's not the only path to approaching this issue, and anyone that's looking with concern at the border crisis and illegal crossings cannot be saddled with the same anti-Semitism tropes. In fact, Jessica Tarlov did something similar back in November when fellow panelist Jesse Waters brought up how the debate around the border crisis quickly gets conflated with the Great Replacement theory to try and shut down further discussion about it.
I don't know who Jesse is talking to in Chicago, but I haven't heard
them on my show.
Yeah, I don't think that Black people are sitting around talking about the Great Replacement theory and how they can't get on a basketball court.
Wait a second. They had to have students leave fields because there wasn't enough room because of the migrants.
You
have to watch Jesse Waters prime time.
8 o'clock is bedtime for the baby, so I have it on in the background. She's a fan, mostly when your mom calls in or texts. No Great Replacement theory.
Incidents like this have been increasing in recent times, despite the fact that I largely believe Jessica Tarlov is a necessary voice on the panel so that it doesn't become an echo chamber on Fox News. Though there is another echo chamber that I should take a second to warn you about, and that is the advice you hear around savings and retirement. You don't need me to tell you that the interwoven world of politics and finance is crumbling before our very eyes, and diversification into time-tested stable assets like precious metals has never been more critical, and that's what our partners at Birch Gold have 2 decades of trust and expertise in, having helped thousands like you do the same. And if you're interested in checking them out, definitely click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your screen to get started right now. But when it comes to our modern political discourse, there's a problem. It's that there are almost 2 versions of every position on an issue. First is the position articulated by one side, and the other is a caricature of the same position that is used to conflate and shut down the first one. That has become evident around a discussion around the border crisis and illegal immigration because a racially charged idea like the Great Replacement theory, popular in many white supremacist circles, can quickly hijack a genuine conversation about the limits to migration and the degree to which cultural homogeneity at home is needed. There's actually also a political angle to this that's sometimes missed because there are characters like Vivek Ramaswamy in recent times that have tried to reclaim the meaning of this theory and portray it as a platform of the Democratic Party, allegedly trying to shift the demographic reality of the voter base to their favor in the border states. If you remember this incredible moment from one of the Republican primary debates, you know exactly what I'm talking about.
I think the real enemy is not Donald Trump. It's not even Joe Biden. It is the deep state that at least Donald Trump attempted to take on. And if you want somebody who's going to speak truth to power, then vote for somebody who's going to speak the truth to you. Why am I the only person on the stage, at least, who can say that January 6th now does look like it was an inside job? That the government lied to us for 20 years about Saudi Arabia's involvement in 9/11? That the Great Replacement theory is not some grand right-wing conspiracy theory, but a basic statement of the Democratic Party's platform.
He certainly got a lot of heat for that, but Vivek is much harder to accuse of white supremacy for obvious reasons. It's a dangerous bleeding out of a fringe idea into the mainstream, and the mismanagement and incompetence at the border crisis is certainly not helping to discredit these ideas openly. As it stands now, the Biden administration's record on migrant border crossings has damaged whatever little confidence that was left, with crossings averaging at 2 million a year since 2021, which is in sharp contrast to the previous administration. Former director of the Immigration and Custom Enforcement, Tom Homan, absolutely lambasted Secretary Mayorkas and the Biden regime, clearly echoing the same sentiments with the words, quote, "This is by design."
I understand it in December, over 300,000 people entered this country and were allowed in or were gotaways who just got their way in. And when the last administration left office, that number was, depending on the month, 5,000 to 20,000. So it's increased by a factor of about 30 to 1. Is that accurate?
Again, that's by design. You flood the court system, put the hearings out 7, 8 years, then the people build equities. And when they build equities, U.S. citizen children buy a house, it makes it more difficult to remove. They'll vast majority become fugitives. They'll ignore the court order. They'll go into hiding, waiting for the next giveaway, waiting for the next amnesty, waiting for the next DACA.
Now you know why someone like Jeanine Pirro would be frustrated at the conversation around border security or the changing voter demographics to immediately be attached to a race-based conspiracy. While a state like Texas that's most impacted by any border policy is still largely a red state, that has not stopped the Republican fearing an electoral loss with shifting demographics. Now, the Biden administration has laid out plans for 11 million illegal immigrants in the country for a path to citizenship, and all trends and polls show how migrants are more likely to vote Democrat for their lenient stand on the migration debate. In fact, something like this is already in debate in New York.
Mr. Blakeman, let me ask you a question, because I'm going off my notes here because I'm astounded. Can illegal immigrants in New York vote?
In New York City, I believe they passed a law. Luckily, we don't have that law in Nassau County, but in the city council and mayoral races, I believe illegal aliens recently have been given the right to vote.
But do you see that there are some, we'll say, Democrats that would want this type policy because it helps them stay in office because they have illegals that vote for them?
It definitely changes the voting pool in favor of those who would let anybody in.
That is a stark admission, and even more important is the fact that none of this debate has anything at all to do with race. Establishing this fact opens up the conversation so people do not feel like they are being lumped with groups on the far right that try to claim the debate for themselves on a twisted racial basis. As for someone like Jessica Tarlov, perhaps she unwittingly introduces that contentious angle much to the dismay of her fellow panelists. I've heard rumors flying around that Fox News is considering dropping her in the future and has even pushed her to test the waters outside the network by going on shows like Bill Maher. Whatever the case may be, it's evident that the border and immigration debate needs to be rid of bad actors and malicious ideas, because it's an issue that requires attention and bipartisan cooperation for us to resolve.